Welcome to Corks Conversation with Elle Grawl.
Oh, I'm so excited about this, Christy. I really enjoyed her book, One of Those Faces. And I'm telling you, this cover is gorgeous. And we've had so many great novels. I think
Kathy,
people are
yours looks
stepping.
so much better. I need to get better lighting. Look at my lighting. It's like all, oh well.
Yeah, it's a great book. Um, it's a great premise. And I am so excited to talk to her about doppelgangers. I'm
Oh yeah.
hugely interested in this. And then you add a little murder in the mix. I'm
Yeah,
in.
yeah. And it's very creepy. But before we get into all that, let me tell you everyone about her a little bit. So Elle Grawl is a lawyer and author of psychological suspense novels, one of those faces and What Still Burns. After obtaining her BA in English literature, she took a detour into law before returning to her love of writing. Sound familiar, Kathy?
A little bit.
Her lifelong interest in true crime and experiences as an attorney have provided her with plenty of writing material. Elle enjoys traveling and spending time with her husband and their two dogs. She has some really great reviews of this book, and including one by J.T. Ellison. She's the New York Times bestselling author,
I
and
love I love JT Ellison.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
talked to her in season 2, so we know she had a lot to offer. So if she says
yeah.
it's good, and what she said was, what an insidious, creepy page turner Elle Grawl has created. A completely assured debut that will send chills down your spine and keep you looking over your shoulder. So, Elle, it's so nice to have you here with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Yeah, welcome. So I suggested the wine today. I'm having a little, I don't have the bottle with me. I wish I did. I suggested the Apothic Cab. Is that what you have today, L2?
Oh,
Yeah.
there
I
she
have it.
goes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
I
Isn't
came
it
prepared.
kind of a nice? She came to play. Kind of a creepy looking label. And I just think it's a perfect cab for today. I will tell you, I did grab the tasting notes. We haven't done that for a while. But it offers a big presence of a classic cab with a silky touch, signature layers of blackberry compote and blackcurrant wrap around hints of mocha and vanilla. Blending the wine with Zinfandel delivers the complexity of Cabernet with billowy tannins that glide across the palate, smooth as
Oh,
silk.
just rub it in while I do dry January
Yeah,
over
poor
here.
Chrissy.
Oh,
So I'm glad you're joining in with me, Elle, on a little cab.
yes,
Yes.
So
absolutely. I
Well, you
think
guys
I've had this
enjoy.
brand before.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I'll
let's do
cheers
cheers
with
to
my
Elle
wine.
and this gorgeous book, her debut.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's not
Thank you.
terrible. Yeah,
It's really good. Yeah,
it is.
I think I've tried this brand before, but I don't think the cab. I don't think I've ever tried it. So
Yeah,
it's really nice.
it is a good one. It is. So I'm really excited to dive into the questions with you. But first, I'd love to give our listeners a little synopsis of one of those faces, because I know they're all going to want to order this and put it on their to be read pile, top of the stack immediately. So here's the a quick little takeaway. Okay, years after escaping an abusive childhood, Harper Mallon, who really struggles with not only sleepless nights, but horrible, terrifying nightmares. And now in her adult life, she's struggling to survive as an artist in this very cool, trendy Chicago neighborhood, just getting by on freelance gigs. And then the things that keep her up at night kind of start confronting her. Her past kind of is right in front of her. And this horrible fear that she has comes right in front of her. And a young woman is killed outside of her apartment. But here's the weird and creepy thing. She really resembles Harper in bring in the doppelgangers. And so Harper, of course, dives in and starts getting information. And she finds some really unsettling links to two previous murders.
It's very twisty turny.
It is twisty. Anyway, as she's realizing this, and she's got these doppelgangers, and she's finding other victims, and her obsession and her paranoia just start going down, spiraling and spiraling, and everyone becomes a suspect. And of course, there's a handsome stranger. Enter handsome stranger. And so the closer she gets to figuring out things, the further apart from the truth she actually finds herself. And it's a great read, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. The first thing I'm dying to ask you about is doppelgangers. Um, I am fascinated by this. I did my thesis in my master's degree in English, by the way, before law school. Just so you know, we're totally in the same
that
track.
was the parallel there.
On Edgar Allan Poe, and he does a lot of work with doppelgangers. So I've always been fascinated. It's, there's tons of doppelganger movies and books, and so I was wondering what about that appealed to you, and how you went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, so I have had weird doppelganger experiences since I was a teenager, and so many times, more than are in the book. I've told a couple of creepy things that have happened from there. As far as I know, I always tell everybody they're still alive and well. As far as I know,
as far as you know.
I haven't heard of anything tragic happening to any of them, but yeah, it's just been kind of this weird anecdote that I've always told people whenever it comes up. And then I've had friends actually tell me, that they've seen somebody who looks like me, and it definitely was not me, but it freaked them out. I've never personally seen any of them, or at least I didn't recognize that they looked like me. But yeah, anyway, so since I was a teenager, I've had these kind of weird things happen. And then I was kind of talking to my husband about it because he was around when I had somebody come up to me and assume that I was somebody else, and it freaked him out. He was like, "Wow, you weren't kidding."
So they
weird.
really do just like to start talking to you like you're somebody else?
Yes, and sometimes
gosh.
depending on how in depth the conversation is, I kind of just got tired of correcting people. So if it was in passing, I'd just be like, "Okay, hi," and then move on.
You mean it happened enough times that you had a pattern and a routine?
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and so and it's
You're not like,
so,
you're do you know your parents are and everything? You're not like
yes.
I kept thinking it was gonna be like, like there's like where they have the sperm bank where they have like
No.
those people.
Oh yeah,
that would be a different
confident. Book. Yes, that would be.
It might happen in this. We're not giving anything away.
But no.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it was just kind of like a weird thing, and it's mostly happened in my region that I live in. Kind of as I've expanded to different cities, it happens sometimes. And then one time when I was visiting out of the state, it happened twice, and I thought it was kind of weird. And finally, my husband was like, "There's a really creepy thriller idea there," and I'm like, "I think you're right." So
that is incredible.
Yeah.
Christie, have you ever been mistaken for someone else?
Just famous people. No, I'm just kidding.
Just gorgeous models.
That's better.
Yeah,
That's way better.
Whatever. No. Actually, no, I haven't. Not like that. Like, I mean, there's obviously probably people have said, "Oh, you kind of look like so and so" or something, but never just straight up like.
Yeah.
No, that is unusual, I think.
Yeah, well, and so I know the names of a few of them because people will tell me, like people will come up to me and they'll call me by that name. So one of the doppelgangers in the book, her name is Sarah. And so I actually took that from an experience that I had when I moved cities. This random lady came up to me and she was so convinced that I was this person named Sarah. And I was like, no. And then everybody always just gets really quiet and awkward because they were so confident. And it was just kind of unsettling because I hadn't lived up here very long. And yeah, it was just weird. So
wow.
I'm completely taken. I can see why your husband was into suggesting that this is a very good thriller concept.
Yeah.
So okay, wow, you really got me. I have never had anybody suggest I look like somebody else or think I was somebody else ever. So the fact that you had this happen multiple times, I know. Intrigued.
And to actually just really be convinced, because that was the thing in the book too. I was like, wow, how can these people not, and how could there be so many doppelgangers? Well, I guess it could be true.
Well, and see, that's what I've had mixed reactions where it seems like people who haven't had that experience don't really believe it. But then there was one agent when I was querying, and she messaged me and she said, "Oh, I have this happen to me all the time." And according
Does she
to
look
her,
like you?
Well, I don't I don't know what she, I don't remember what she looks like. But what she told me is she said, I'm a brown-haired woman with glasses. And I was like, maybe that's the thing. I haven't always been wearing glasses when this has happened. This is kind of a recent development. But and then I have occasional reviews where people will say, I have one of those faces, so I loved, all these eerie things going on. So I think I think maybe it's the brown hair. I don't
So
know.
you're either in one camp or the other. Like you've had this happen to you or you haven't, which is so cool. Okay, so Harper, the story is told from Harper's point of view, and she has some issues. Harper has some issues. She does, and but that's what makes her lovable, and also makes us keep guessing and like want to, follow her. So obviously, we know that the first person point of view from Harper was an intentional choice. What was hard about it, and what did you try out something else also?
No, I knew I always wanted to do first person with this book. I'd say the real struggle is with first person with this book, and then I feel like any other writing with first person is trying to communicate to the reader what the character actually knows in a way that readers can put things together in maybe a way the main character can't, if that makes any sense. I feel like that's kind of hard to translate and telegraph through, the first person narrative sometimes. So you have to kind of drop things that maybe, like I said, the character is not really picking up on, but you have to trust readers are paying attention and they can kind of string things along maybe. So
readers are smart. I mean, I feel like we always hear that from authors. Like, I just trust the reader because I know they're smart enough and they're gonna catch these clues. And I always find that leap of faith pretty awesome.
Yeah, but you have to, but it's a fine line, right? Because you don't want the character to seem like they're just like idiots, because then that's annoying. When you're reading, you're like going, hello, do you not see this? Red flag,
Yeah.
So you got to make them be like, okay, well, maybe they're doubting it because they're groggy or something like that, Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. So what I was going to mention too, because we mentioned earlier that JT Ellison was on our podcast, and so she talked about a 2-minute rule. And basically it's, you got to hook the readers within the first 2 minutes. And I want to say that this book is really, really good at that. I mean, you hook me right away, like in the first page, but even, I can read a few pages into 2 minutes. But I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about how important that is, especially for a debut novel, and also maybe give our listeners some insight in the amount of effort that actually goes into those 2 minutes of reading, because I feel like it's astronomical compared to what you would think, just 2 minutes of reading, but that's an important 2 minutes. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's a good rule. Also, I just want to say I love JT Ellison. She's amazing. I was so happy to get a blurb from her.
Oh my gosh. You must have been thrilled. I've been a fan of hers for a really long time. And I drove to, she was appearing in one of her book tours in like 4 hours away from me in Minneapolis. And I drove to go because I just thought she was so cool. And I just think she's a phenomenal writer and a prolific one. I mean, she doesn't give a lot of blurbs. I mean, I really think that's a very meaningful blurb to get. So I kudos.
Yeah, I hope to meet her someday in person. Hopefully our paths will cross in person. But yeah, she's really great. So yeah, I think it is a lot of work. And I have to tell you, so the opening, I don't think it's a spoiler to talk about how it opens, right? You can see that online.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it opens on a dream sequence that
which everybody always says don't do, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what and I knew that going into it, and I had reservations because I knew that's kind of one of the cliche things everybody says don't do.
Right.
But given the themes of the book and her particular struggles, I just felt like I couldn't get away from it. And that particular dream sequence really sums up and gives, very, I think, very detailed kind of mental
Insight,
images,
yeah. Oh yeah.
into what, she's afraid of, and some, important information that comes up through the story. So it did change quite a few times because what happens after the dream sequence was kind of more of an issue. What to put in the beginning to make it more compelling that you do want to read more. So I actually did end up working with my agent to edit, some of the stuff out. And then it's a process even with the developmental editor once I got my publisher involved, because she actually thought I needed some more there. And so there was this weird middle ground that I had to find where I was keeping the pace, interesting enough that people want to keep turning the page after that creepy dream sequence, but then also give enough information, but not too much that it was bogging the story down in the opening pages. So it took a lot of work. You're right. Probably if I lined all of that up just for the first 2 minutes of the read, it was probably like 6 months just working on that. If you look at all the edits and everything, right?
So. That's Christie. That's such a good question, because not that that writers don't edit heavily every single moment of a novel, but that opening scene is
it's
so
edited again
important.
and again and again, because also you're using it for when you're trying to get an agent and you're querying and stuff. So. And I was like, okay, it's a dream, but it works. And then like when Ellison was like, she always puts like a murder in the first, couple pages. And then even after the dream, right away, we find out about the murder on the news. So it was like, oh yeah, she's doing it. She's doing it. She's following JT's rules. It works. I'm like,
I also love, we're not giving any spoilers away. So if I get close, wave me down. But I really, as a reader, love the book-ended moments in a novel where you really see why those important details were important at the beginning. And so I can see where you have to just, even if you're an outliner, even if you have the whole story structured, until you write it, you really don't know. And you always have to be going back, I imagine, to that first scene and linking all that stuff together.
Because that's really
Well, and so I'm not actually an outliner. I knew how I wanted this book to, I kind of roughly knew just off the top of my head how I wanted it to go. And then I knew the ending as soon as I started writing it. But everything in between was kind of, it took a lot. And then you're right, you have to go back and make sure that those breadcrumbs are spread out, throughout the story. And what I've started doing now, because my drafting and editing is kind of a nightmare since I don't outline. So now I've started making,
sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. So what I started doing for books going forward is I make a book Bible document. And so anytime that like a name changes or anything, and I always change people's names so many times throughout a manuscript for whatever reason. And so
you just can't commit.
I can't. And anyway, so I started keeping a document of all the main important people, all the big events, any clues that come up that I need to keep track of. And fingers crossed that makes things easier for me in the future. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you do it in Word or have you tried Scrivener? Because Scrivener kind of has where you can sort of do that, I think. But
okay. I've been scared to try Scrivener. I know everybody uses it. I use Google Docs. That's how I
use Google Docs as well.
Google Docs.
I do.
Okay.
You know why though? Is because that lovely little backup. It's just constantly backing up.
Yeah.
Constantly backing up.
Well, it does that on Word too, doesn't it? Now it does, because Word goes
I think you can
through,
set it up that way. Yeah, with OneDrive. I have dabbled into Scrivener. I totally can see the attraction of, I can see why JT Ellison used to, at least, she would post like her word count for the day. And that kind of stuff is like dopamine hits for me, like, right, oh, you met your goal. And I get how, but it seems like a lot of work to learn. And I can't say that I want to spend the time doing that. Doesn't that sound terrible?
Well, I know I have it, and I haven't bought it yet because I'm still doing the 30-day. Because they don't make you do it time wise. Right. It's just like each day that you use it. So I'll go on And so it's like, okay, you've got 15 days left. Do you want to buy it? And I'm like, well, I better make sure I buy it or transfer this stuff. But it's hard. But it does have kind of some cool features that I would think,
It
you know.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like if you are an outliner naturally, I feel like that's probably an amazing software for you, right? Because from what I've seen other people do, there's so many different ways to keep track of scenes and plotting stuff out. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's very heavy conversation. Let's have a little beverage, shall we? Christie has a question for you. You've listened to the podcast before. You know the question in the bottle is just a fun question. Blah, blah, blah.
All right. Okay.
Looks like the moment for us to take a sip of our wine.
Yes, you guys enjoy a sip while I read. Okay. If you had to wear a dinosaur costume to one major life event, which would you choose?
What did you say? A dinosaur outfit?
Yes. If you have to wear a dinosaur costume to one major life event, which would you choose?
So off the top of my head, I would want to say a triceratops, but I feel like a pterodactyl would be a bold move. So I'm going to say pterodactyl.
Because I think
No, but
which
event would you wear?
Oh, which event? I thought you meant which dinosaur.
She's like, I'm going to really focus on the dinosaur.
I'm like, wow, she's a nerd.
She's like, I'm not going to do the T-Rex arms. I'm going to do the pterodactyl.
Oh, no. Yeah. Which life event?
But that's another good way of looking at it now that you think about it. Be like, I can't eat as well.
Breakfast. At Thriller Fest.
Yes.
A what?
I'd love that.
The debut breakfast at Thriller Fest.
I think actually in the same vein, maybe accepting an award for a book would be wonderful. I would love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
as a pterodactyl,
like the Edgar Award.
Yes.
I mean,
why not?
Wouldn't that be fabulous if you just could do that?
Let's have a pact right now. Like if any of us win the Edgar, that's what we'll do.
I can't do that because Elle could very well be up for that next year, and I am not going to hold her to that.
I'll do it.
The improbability, I love it. You know.
I am there. I do love those. Like we're talking about blow up ones, right? Like those blow up inflatable dinosaur.
You can
outfits.
Any kind of costume if you want. You can make it yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. But I did see. I suppose it was on TikTok or social media where I can't remember. Like I think some grandkids were coming out to meet their grandmother, and she got wind they were going to wear dinosaur costumes, so she wore a dinosaur costume.
Oh, Cathi.
What?
I am pretty sure, and we should look this up, but I think Catherine Ryan wore one in her neighborhood. Something to do with one of her books coming out.
Well, she loves Jurassic Park. Catherine Ryan is obsessed with Jurassic Park, and I bet that's why.
So I think her and her husband were like toasting, and they were wearing. I don't know. I remember seeing it on social media. Oh my god,
that's really
so funny. Yeah.
My dog is barking because we're talking about pterodactyls, and she's very upset. We're a big dinosaur family here, so I appreciate that Elle. Oh yeah, like when the kids were little, that's what they used to play with instead of Barbies.
No, I'm not as much of a nerd as I thought. Okay, thank you.
No, so I love that Elle right away was like, so I'm not gonna do T-Rex. I'm going for pterodactyl. I was like,
oh god, that's funny.
I love that.
All right, so you've got a debut out.
I know.
You got your second novels on pre-order. Saw that.
Yeah.
So there has to have been a lot of highs and lows during this whole publishing process. Can you talk to us about any of those?
Well, okay. So for one of those spaces, I was on the verge of giving up on traditional publishing with it. I had, so it's kind of funny because the agent I ended up with, she was closed to queries when I started. And so she had been in my first, round of people to query to, because her manuscript wish list really, it seemed like a perfect fit for my story. And I kind of just highlighted it on the little spreadsheet I had for queries. And then, almost a year had gone by and I had people read, I had agents read it. But ultimately everything came back with a rejection. And I was really close to just kind of, I don't know, trying to figure out a plan B for it. And then January, I want to say, I guess it was 2021 when I signed with her, or close to 2021, January. And I decided I was going to try one last time to a couple of agents. And I had a few stragglers on my list. And then I had this like one little green field that was highlighted with my agent Abby's name on it. And I was like, let me go see if she's open to queries again. And she was. And so I sent it to her and she responded within one day. So there's the low and the high at the same time.
Yes.
It all kind of,
Wow.
I was so surprised, and she read it in a couple of days. And then over the weekend, she emailed me and she wanted to set up a call. And I couldn't believe it. All of this time,
And
I've been so stressed out.
This was your ideal agent? Like this was your pie in the sky
Yes.
agent?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and like I said, the timing just didn't work out for almost a year, almost a full year. And she might have opened to queries a few months before I actually checked, but like I said, she was all the way up here, and I'd scrolled and gone through all these other people.
Oh, Elle, that's
Yeah.
So then she called you?
Yes, yeah. And then we had a call, and she loved it, and she had a great, editorial vision for it. And that was the thing. I had heard back from a couple of people who had key issues with things that I was not willing to change completely. I was, of course, willing to change and tweak things about the story if it made the story stronger, in my opinion,
Right.
since I wrote it. And Abby, I feel like her vision really perfectly aligned with where I wanted the story to actually be. She and I were kind of on the same page. And so, yeah, it just worked out great. So,
Oh, well, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And so then once you got published, I mean, I'm sure there were some surprises along the way. And did you automatically have like a 2-book deal or?
no, I just got the 1-book deal for one of those faces. And then before it came out, I got re-signed with a 2nd book. So that was another nice high
Yeah.
to get that. But yeah. But yeah, the submission process, I think for anybody who's been through it, once you have an agent and then when they're submitting your book, that's an incredibly stressful time, and it's just waiting, and then also more rejection after you've already been rejected by a lot of agents.
Right.
So yeah, it's just stressful. But we did well, and that's kind of the funny thing too. So the editor and the publisher I got with for one of those faces in the 2nd book, she was actually in our first round of pitches on submission, but it took her a while to read, to get to my book. And we had already gone to the 2nd round, and I was getting more rejection. And then, suddenly she read it, and she read it in a couple of days when she picked it up, and she loved it. So it's just kind of a lot of weird timing things, when you kind of give up hope because, you're in the 2nd round,
So I guess I was going to ask what your tip is for other aspiring authors, and I probably it's like don't give up, but
it's so cliched, but I mean, really, yeah, it's just well, and then also, it seems like a lot of waiting, but it's worth it if you're able to find the right fit. But I don't think there should be any negative things said about, finding the right time to give up, because I mean, there are, certain times when you do have to kind of let a project go to start a new one. And, you're not throwing in the towel completely, but, I don't think there's any shame for, people who they've kind of taken as much as they can for that 1 book, and they want to start a new project. So it just happened that my timing worked out well that way. But I was about to do that. So
okay, so Elle, we've had just this incredible list of people this year, and I'm thinking Yasmin Ango, and I'm thinking Wanda Christie, right? And they've all had this kind of really special experience where they were kind of getting to the end of their, I don't know, patience or what the waiting time was. They thought they could give it, and then something really incredible happened, kind of like you with your dream agent, right? And the editor. But I also don't, and that's really wonderful, but I also don't want people to think that you have to have this magical thing. A lot of this is just the wait, right? And the work.
Yeah. And it is so subjective because there's people on the other end of everything in the traditional publishing industry, right? So, and, they all have different opinions, and, like I said, timing. If she hadn't reopened to queries when she did, and I had already given up, then who knows if I would have ever, found someone. So yeah.
So much in life is that way. timing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's good to acknowledge that you can only control what you can control. And that's a hard thing for some of us to acknowledge.
Yes.
I'm not saying who.
Yeah.
Okay, so Elle, so you we mentioned at the outset, I believe, that you are a lawyer. Who I love that you said that you took a little segue into law versus the other way around.
Yeah.
So what's your writing routine like when you have a job and a second job, which is writing?
Yeah. So originally, how it started with one of those spaces was I was working at a different firm, and I would take my lunch breaks at a coffee shop and just write out as many words as I could. And then if I felt like I was on a roll and I had more in me, then at night when I got back home, I would keep writing. Or I'd wake up super early the next day and keep writing. But I don't know. Somehow I managed to squeeze it in. I don't really know what happened. I was super stressed out at that period of my life. But maybe, I don't know. I think there was something cathartic about writing. And so I poured a lot into it in my free time. And now I've kind of found a way to scale back my practice, and, make a specific routine that works, so I can get more words in and kind of give both professions, enough time, or close to as much time as they deserve, as much as humanly possible. So,
because
but it is a
only
struggle.
so many hours in the day.
There are, yeah.
And so you mentioned, and so your second is out for pre-order, which we're going to put a link on, because pre-orders, by the way, audience, are a lovely gift to give authors. Pre-order their books. It is as nice as giving a review, if not nicer. I don't know which, but
Sometimes nicer, yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the review.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that you had gotten that second book deal before this one even came out. So are you working on another standalone, or are we at what's going on?
So the second book is a standalone. And then I don't know, I have too many irons in the fire at once. So I have maybe 3 different projects being drafted at the same time. It's a little chaotic. I'm trying to figure out which one to finish first. But yeah, so I do have a few things kind of in the works. But ultimately it depends on, well, first what I finish first, and then also, what the publisher is interested in. So we'll see.
And so pre-order, everybody, pre-order.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny. I'm glad you're plugging the pre-orders, because before, I think a lot of writers, before they actually had books coming out, most of us also didn't know how important pre-orders can be. So, yeah.
I still don't know.
I
was like, Cathi, how do you know that? I didn't know that.
I've been doing my research. It shows a lot of faith to publishers and what audiences are going to come back for. And I feel like we only focus on writers here, but publishers are in this. This is a business for them as well. They're in this to make a living, obviously, and as are writers. But they're often, I feel like, kind of at odds with each other, but they need not be. But yeah, so Christie and I always say, over Christmas we were saying, as a kindness, if you want to give your favorite authors a Christmas gift, leave a review. But I also would say pre-order your next book. Yeah. And I do that to all of my favorite authors that come out with a new book. I intentionally go and pre-order. So
the other thing, and it's completely free, is requesting, books at the library. That's kind of a big help too. And one of my other agent siblings, she's a librarian, and I think she's some kind of really important sounding regional librarian person. She orders for several different libraries in her area.
Like a buying librarian, or
I think so. Yeah. So she wrote some article. I wish I could remember the website it was on, but her name's Tara Harris, and she wrote an article about how like the role libraries play when it comes to authors, and they actually pay a little bit more when they buy books, because they're essentially, buying one copy that's going to be read several times. So it's a little bit of a different process. And then they also reorder books whenever they get worn out and checked out a lot. So if you do have favorite books, go request them at all your local libraries.
I didn't realize that. I should start doing that, because a lot of times I will go, I like to get like Kindle from the library here, and if they don't have the author, because they don't have everybody's, they don't know until So I'll go check and see if they have yours.
I do too. I love that tip. That is a wonderful tip.
Yeah,
because
and
I didn't know. And it would say,
free.
"Do you want to order?" And I'd be like, "Going, oh, I don't want to be rude," like.
But they want to know what you want to read, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know?
So, and I think, you could turn the librarians onto an author that you really like.
Right.
And then, once that book is in circulation at the library, random people are going to be exposed to an author that they probably never heard of. And, they'll be on the lookout for next books and stuff. So, yeah.
Very cool.
I frequent our local library here too in our little town, and they have a new release mysteries and thrillers section right when I walk in, and I can't tell you how many of our podcast guests have been in that. I'm like, you should be taking pictures of this. Why am I hello? No, you just open my brain.
Or you should even,
great.
well, I was going to say, you should even ask the librarian if you can you can have access to make a guest shelving display of all your favorites or something. Try to get in there. Ask them if they'll let you curate your own shelf.
Meet you.
I know.
Like, okay, I'll be calling you for marketing and publicity help from now on.
Yeah.
Okay, Christie has a final question for you, Elle.
Oh yeah, gosh, I almost forgot. Okay. So, which of your characters would you like to share a meal with, and what would it be?
I mean, the thing is, they're all complicated, right?
Who would you trust to have a meal with?
Yeah. So, honestly, I think I probably had enough of Harper because she was living in my head for a very long time while I wrote this. So I might maybe Danny. For readers who know who Danny is, I think he'd be kind of a fun, easier person to talk to than
I was
like my main character.
I'm like Danny. Pick Danny.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's one of my favorites. I mean, I love them all. And like I said, I love Harper, but I've spent a lot of time with her over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have. I imagine. She's been in your brain for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you already have
probably Chicago deep dish or something. I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, some cool restaurant from that neighborhood.
Yeah, or even are you guys familiar with Chicago? Because maybe go to Portillo's, get a hot dog or something. I think that'd be great.
I've only been a couple times, but Kathy, you just went recently.
I did just go recently, and I don't know Portillo's, but now I want to.
Oh no! Okay, yeah, they're great.
Now I want to.
Right.
Yeah, Chicago style hot dogs are my favorite. Yeah, they're great.
Sounds really good right now. Okay, so Elle, when our listeners want to find out more about you or reach out to you, where should they go?
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram with the same handle, Elle Grawl. It wasn't taken, so I tried to keep everything as consistent as possible. My website.
Thank you very much from our point of view too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got lucky. So nobody has the same last name, so.
Well,
that you know of. You've got doppelgangers all over the place.
Yeah, I know. When I came back to the screen a second ago, I mean, I swear you look just like this friend of mine in high school.
Oh,
I was like,
no.
She kind of did a little bit, but I mean, it's been years since I've seen her, so I definitely wouldn't have thought. Anyway, so this has been a lot of fun, and we really want to thank you. And I think we need to do another cheers.
I do too.
Yeah. This book and the next one coming out.
I'm going to hold this up while I hold this gorgeous cover. One of those faces.
Mm.
Cheers, Elle.
Cheers.